Hello once again, it's Matthew here from Matthew North Music. Thank you for joining my channel. As ever, if you like the kind of videos I make, be them about electronics, computers, retro tech, music, or even some of the music I make myself, please hit the subscribe button. It really does help the channel to grow. And if you share my stuff on social media, that's really helpful as well. And if you don't follow me on social media, then Matthew North Music is where I am on Facebook, Instagram, and yeah, that's about it. Anyway, today we're going to talk about some computers. Now, I'd say probably about a year ago now, maybe even 2 years ago, thinking about it, a friend of mine gave me some old computers. Now, these had been left in a loft, and the loft had had a water leak, and these computers were very sorry for themselves, but I managed to get most of it working. There was my BBC Master here that was in the loft. That was the first computer I repaired, of which I did a video about it, and I use this computer on a fairly regular basis, and it's working very well. There's this computer here, which is a Pentium 166. Now, I didn't do a video about this computer, but what was basically wrong with it is the power supply was dead, and I ended up putting in a more modern ATX power supply, and then I used an adapter cable to run it as an AT. But this machine's now running Windows 98 and it works absolutely fine. So that was a happy repair. But there was one other computer that I got which I thought would make a more interesting video for the channel, and it's this. Now, this is a 486. It's branded as Escom. I vaguely remember them as a brand back in the day. There were a lot of these sort of brands that basically just used to buy bits, assemble computers and sell them through magazines like PCW and I think Computer Active and all those sort of magazines that were around in the 90s. Now, this machine has a few issues. The main issue is the motherboard's completely dead. I took it out and it had loads of corrosion on it, loads of dead traces. I did try to repair a lot of it with bodge wires, but in the end it was just completely dead. So I just thought, you know what, I'm going to cut my losses and I'm going to ditch it. And what we're left with is a case. There's no floppy drive in it at the moment because I actually took the floppy drive out of this machine to go in to use it with the BBC, because it was one that had drive number select jumpers on it, so you could call it drive 0, 1, 2 or 3. And using a BBC Master or a BBC B with a 1720 or whatever the interface is called, you can use 3.5-inch discs. So the idea is that drive I'm going to use on one of my BBC Bs at my other, where I keep my music gear. But we have a case, we have a power supply that is working, although I do have another ATX with an adapter if it does fail, but at the moment the power supply in this machine is working. It has a CD-ROM, which I have no reason for it not to work, and I've bought some bits to go with it. I've bought a motherboard, I've bought a sound card, I've bought a floppy disk, and I also have a compact flash to IDE adapter. So hopefully we should be able to get all of this up and running Windows 3.1, DOS 622, and some bits of music software. But the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to take the front off this and give it a clean because it's pretty grotty. And saying that, you can see it, you know, it's had plenty of life, and if I just sort of tip the camera down a bit, you can see that it's all a bit grimy and a bit mucky, and it's just because it's been left in a shed. So we should be able to take the front off this and give it a clean, and at the same time we'll give the case a clean. Now, I have to be very careful when I clean this case because it's got written in Sharpie pen what's rattling on the top. Now, that was actually written by my friend's late father, and I'm going to keep that on there as a keepsake. And what was actually rattling in this computer, well, I can show you what that was. And what was rattling was this piece of plastic, which is the floppy drive cover here, and one of the clips is actually broken on here. Well, I say it's broken, it's very, very weak. So what I intend to do is to stick some epoxy on there just to make it stronger, and then hopefully it'll go back in and it won't rattle anymore. There's actually a sticker on the back, and it specifies that this computer had DOS 6.2 and or 6.22 rather, and Windows 3.11. So that's going to be the right software to put on. But if I zoom the camera out a little bit, you can probably see there's a lot of rust, particularly on the covers for the slots on the back. So I'm going to take these out and I'll probably replace them, and I'll try and clean off the rust on here as well with probably some WD-40 and a toothbrush, and just be very careful just to try and get rid of some of that muck off the back as I clean it. In this box then we've got our new motherboard, which I bought off eBay a few weeks ago, and I've also managed to find the manual for it online, so we should have all the jumper settings and whatnot, although I suspect there might not be too much we have to do. That's what I'm hoping anyway. And here we go. It's all wrapped in sort of funny brown paper stuff, and it looks like it's in an anti-static bag, which of course is always good. And yeah, there's our ISA mainboard, and it should have VESA local bus on it, because that's what I bought to match what was in the computer originally. I can't remember the last time I bought a motherboard for a computer. Very, very long time ago. And that's our board. So we've got 2 VESA local bus slots. The rest are all 16-bit ISAs. We've got a CR, whatever it is, 32 or whatever battery, which is good. There's no sign of any corrosion or damage on the base of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount this to its base, and we're going to plug it in outside the computer with its video card and a bit of RAM and a processor, and we're just going to check that this works. Well, the first problem is these 2 spacers have to be moved because they're not in the correct position for this board, but they should be if that one goes there. Okay, now that should now line up, and it does indeed. It says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, I've got the board hooked up to its power, and I've just got the graphics card in at the moment, and we're going to see if this thing will power on. Here we go. Hopefully we will get something on the screen. And we've got absolutely nothing, and there's a reason we've got nothing, because I haven't put in any RAM. Now I've got various sticks of RAM, and I'm going to try all of them because I'm not 100% sure what I've actually got in terms of RAM, and I think this stick was one of the sticks that was actually in the other motherboard, so we'll see what happens now. And we're not getting anything at all at the moment. Nothing at all. Oh, that's a shame. Got a different stick of RAM now. Let's see if this one makes any difference. No, nothing yet again. I'm going to try putting the graphics card into a different slot. It may help, I don't know. Yes, there we go. We got a boot screen now, and that's saying that's 4 megs of RAM, which is excellent. That's really good. We'll turn that off now. Now this is another chip that was in the old computer. Again, I have no idea what value memory is on this, and whether this is parity memory or not. I think it probably isn't, because it's only got 2 chips on. But we'll see. Let's power it up, see what happens. Good, that's loading up again. And that's another 4 megs of RAM. So at the moment, we have got 1 8 meg that's working and 2 4 megs that are working. And these two here, the 8 and the 4, have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So these are all non-parity, I think, which is good news because that means there we've got a possible 16 megs of RAM. However, we've got these as well. Now these have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now these memory chips came from a 486 machine I actually bought during lockdown, but I was having trouble using them, which is why I took them out. But I didn't throw them away. And let's just see if they'll work on this machine, because memory's a funny old thing. It works on some machines and it doesn't work on others. However, on this machine, that's not working. So I'm going to safely say now that that stick is also a dud. And I've got one more like this, but I suspect this isn't going to work either. Oh no, this one's working. And again, that's 4 megs. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put in another 4 megs and check that boots up to 8 megs. So let's switch that on, see what happens. That's giving us 8 megs, excellent. So I'm going to put this other 4 meg chip in now, because I may as well use all this up, because I think after this machine I'm not going to be building any more 486s anytime soon. If I can get this machine up and running, this is going to be my keeper. 12 megs, perfect. So let's stick in our 8 meg chip. Now if this doesn't work with it because it's a different size, then I will just keep the 3 in that are already there. However, I am hoping that we might have a full set of memory. So this should give us, what, something like 20 megs of RAM or thereabouts. Well, it's loading. Yep, that's giving us our 20 megabytes of RAM. Now we've established everything's working, I can now fit this into the case. I can plug in all our LEDs and whatnot, and I'm then going to put in this graphics card, and I'm going to put in the fan for the processor and wire everything else in, and then we'll see what we can do following that. But first, I also need to install what's in here. And what should be in here is, again, I bought this a few weeks ago on eBay and I haven't opened it till now. And this should be a floppy disk drive. And again, I bought this off someone who seems to deal in parts, because I actually find if you do buy old parts from dealers, you know, they've probably been tested and they're okay. And there's our floppy drive. It's a little bit faded in colour, but that doesn't matter, that adds to the appeal. And yeah, we'll get that popped in as well, and we'll see if we can boot off a disk. But for the moment, I'm just going to screw all this back together. Okay, we've now got the IO card in there, we've got the floppy disk connected, and I've got a keyboard plugged in. So let's switch on and let's see what happens. Well, the keyboard seems to be working, which is good. And hit Del to enter setup. There we go, there's our BIOS. So drive C, right. We haven't got a drive in there at the moment, so what I'm going to do there is set it to none. And we've got our A drive there, and we're going to take out our B drive. And that should be okay for the time being. Save and exit, yep. And we'll just see if it does a floppy seek. which I hope it does. Get rid of the memory test. Floppy disk fail. That's not good. Now I wonder if disk boot failure, set disk and press out. Right, I'll stick a disk in and see what happens. Right. Oh, it's seeking the disk. Disk boot failure, insert system disk. Well, it's looking at the disk, but it's not. Oh, it's trying to read it. But no, it's not liking it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try a different floppy drive. Now this I know is a working floppy drive because this is the one that was in this machine that I've been using with my BBC Micro. So we'll switch on and we'll see what happens now. Floppy disk fail again. F1 to continue. Disk boot failure. It's not liking this drive. I wonder if it's something to do with the controller card. CO on the error message stands for controller, and I think it is probably the controller card. They're known as Super IO cards, and apparently they're prone to failing. So it could be that. So I might need to think about getting myself a new IO card for this computer. Or it could be the port it's plugged in. Because do you remember the graphics card wouldn't work in that socket? But I think it's probably the controller card. Now you might just notice there that we've actually got 32 megs of RAM now. Because while I was out looking to see if I had a spare IO card, I did find some more Sims memory, including one block of 8 and another block of 16. So I've put the 16 in there with the two 8s, and we've now got some more memory. Now I've got one other card here that's going to go in the machine, and this I think I actually got from the same eBay seller as the mainboard, looking at the packaging, and that's this, which is a Creative Labs Vibra 16 sound card. Now these cards are pretty decent. They run in DOS, they run in Windows 3.1, and this looks in pretty decent nick, and this will run fine on this machine. And in fact, you could use this machine, if you wanted to run on like an XT type machine. So I could pop that in the Amstrad and it would work in there, just using this chunk, so it becomes like an 8-bit sound card. But I'm going to pop this into the computer anyway, just so it's in there. Now you may remember this from a previous video I did about the Opus V20 based XT machine. This is the XT IDE card. Now I did try using this on the Amstrad and I couldn't get it to work, and I think the reason was I didn't have the dip switches set correctly for the 300 base address, which is its default. And on this card it should have DOS drivers for the for running the sound card, and it should even have a version of Cakewalk on there for DOS. And if I pop this in, it may just work. So I'm going to pop it in the machine and we'll see what happens. There's our card then in place, and let's switch on. Okay, well, it's doing its memory test and it's going up to 32 megs. I'm just going to drop out the memory test because we've seen that enough times now. And let's just see what's going to happen. And that's saying it's found our 16 megabyte card and it's loading MS-DOS. And it looks like it's loaded the card. So if I go to Cakewalk and type in Cakewalk, and oh, it's loading up. It's there. Okay. So if I now go Alt F, I think it is, and go open, and I open the test file. Now you're not going to be able to hear anything because I've got nothing plugged into the sound card. But if I just hit the space bar, yeah, we can see it's playing, and we saw that it loaded the driver for the sound card. So actually, this machine is now fully functioning and I could use this as a music system. Now, the only thing I can't do is use a mouse because I haven't got any I/O for a mouse or for a disk drive. So I'm going to have to get myself an I/O card. But otherwise, the machine appears to be working. So what have I learnt from doing this so far? Well, quite a lot really, because I haven't worked on a machine like this for a long time. And there aren't many of these little old desktops around these days, or mini towers I should say. And this was certainly seen as what would be a budget machine at the time, because again, it was put together by a small company, but I rather like it. I think it's a cute little machine. And once I've got myself an I/O card, then hopefully the floppy drive and the hard drive will all work, and then I will have a fully working 486 PC that will have Windows 3.1 on it, and I will use this as my main computer for doing anything kind of DOS related. I'm not going to put a real hard drive in it because there's no point. I mean, I have got a couple of small hard drives, but you know, it's compact flash cards are so much easier to use, especially when you want to try and get information onto them. But anyway, for now, hope you've enjoyed this little video. Not the most interesting, granted, but you know, I just like to keep a record of these things, and hopefully you might find it interesting too. Anyway, catch you on the next one.